This is Nick.
This is Jack.
It's Thursday, the new Friday, February 16th, and today's pod is absolutely the best one yet.
Before we start the show, we have an announcement.
We do. Yetis, we just announced on Instagram that Jack and I have signed with an agent.
Jerry Maguire wasn't available, but the team at UTA smiles like Tom Cruise.
Our agent, it is a big step to grow the T-Boy podcast in our second year as an independent show. We're pumped.
For more about our signing with UTA, check out our Instagram at TBoyPod.
It's a great picture, too. I really like the photo, Jack.
That is some high-quality photography that I'm proud of.
You look fantastic in that sweater. What is our first story for today's pod, my man?
Airbnb just announced its best year ever.
Yeah, because besties, when your office is Zoom, your salvation is travel.
For our second story, Chipotle is launching an entirely new restaurant brand called Farmesa.
It actually sounds better than Chipotle, and that's the point.
And our third and final story, the United States just seduced two car companies to leave Europe and come to America.
Because America is building the BRC. And what is the BRC, Jack?
We call it the Badass Rock Club.
The Badass Rock Club.
But Yetis, before we hit that fantastic mix.
We weren't sure if we could say badass on the podcast, but we decided, yes, we can say it on the podcast.
Apparently, we're going to say it 3 times.
I love this mix.
It is Thursday, the new Friday.
Thursday, the new Friday. So know what you're doing, Yetis. You may be going out tonight.
We just got the data on what you'll be craving.
More specifically, we just got the numbers on your late night cravings.
Grubhub just released their nationwide delivery data on who is eating what, where.
What Jack's trying to say here is we got all the info on your midnight nom-noms.
Now, what is the number one most devoured late night dessert, Nick?
Well, Jack, it's not Twix bars. It's actually tiramisu.
All right, tiramisu, the ladyfingers. How about the number one most popular late night food?
Well, Jack, it's not nachos. It's actually chicken quesadillas.
Yo quiero quesadilla. Okay, and Nick, what was the city with the most late night food orders, like generally?
The city with the most late night food orders, it wasn't Chicago and it wasn't Los Angeles. It's Boston.
It's Boston. But that's because Boston bars close at like 11.
So if you're living in Boston, you're slamming salmon sushi at 11:01 p.m.
But yet it's not late night snacks unless you're planning breakfast.
It is not late night snacks unless you're carbo loading before you begin carbo loading.
Well, New York City orders more breakfast bagels for delivery than any other city.
We're talking bagels, the breakfast that champions.
I'll do anything for everything bagels.
It's like a healthy donut. No carbs, no peace.
So Yetis, enjoy that chicken quesadilla tonight.
Then toss on some tiramisu.
But save some room for that bagel and lox tomorrow morning.
Jack, let's smear our 3 stories.
15 years before this song, 2 boys from the Northeast met in the dorm. They had an idea that caused a cultural storm. It's the best one yet, but the best is the norm. Jack, Nick, that's it. I don't even think they need to practice. 50%, that's a fat tip. T-Boy City on your at-list. If you know, cause we ready to go. We can't wait no more, so just start the show. Start the show.
For our first story, unlike every other tech company Jack and I have covered over the last 2 months, Airbnb just announced its best year ever.
Because travel has become the antidote to your screens.
But first of all, Yetis, Jack and I have got to tell you about just this shocker, just a total surprise in the Airbnb earnings.
This is cool.
We jumped in T-Boy style too.
You can Airbnb the CEO of Airbnb's house.
We repeat, Brian Chesky, the CEO and founder of Airbnb, you can Airbnb his house. Like, go on Airbnb right now. What do you search for again, Jack?
Search for Beyond the Airbed.
Search for that.
Because that's the name of his San Francisco apartment in the Castro.
All right, like I said, we jumped in T-Boy style. Jack, I'm on it right now. This is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, washer-dryer, city view, free parking included apartment of the Airbnb founder.
I looked closely at all the pictures of his apartment to see if he has like the same coffee table book as me.
What'd you notice?
He didn't, but he has Aesop soap. Hand soap, which you have at your house, right?
I was going to say, I was curious what the shampoo situation is because he includes it. I've seen his head of hair. He seems like an Herbal Essence kind of a guy, but I love a good Aesop too.
He has very similar hair to you.
You're making me blush. But here's the funny thing, Yetis. The Airbnb CEO, he doesn't need to Airbnb his place for some side hustle cash these days.
No, because Airbnb's business has never been better.
Jack, can you whip up the numbers for us in Airbnb's last quarter?
In 2022, revenues jumped by 40% for Airbnb.
Oh, and that's not all. What was that other number?
They recorded their first full year profit since they came into existence. And the stock this year, this young year of 2023, it's up 61% already.
Yetis, this wasn't just an earnings report. This was an oceanfront villa of an earnings report.
But Yetis, funny thing about Airbnb's earnings, Airbnb is a barometer for how we are traveling.
So the way Jack and I see it, when Airbnb reports earnings, it's kind of a mirror to look at you.
So in the last quarter, here's what average Airbnb Andy was up to on his weekends and his vacation days.
The average Airbnb Andy using Airbnb visited a city, took a long trip, and was working hard and playing hard the entire time.
Yet he's right now, for the first time since the pandemic, a majority of Airbnb bookings were in dense urban areas, which we all avoided during the pandemic.
Right, you weren't going to New York City maybe during the pandemic, but apparently everyone's going to New York City right now after the pandemic.
Here's what else average Airbnb Andy is doing. Half of their stays are for a week or more.
Okay, half of stays on Airbnb are like bookending a week with 2 weekends. That's the pro move. Half of Airbnb stays.
And a typical Airbnb booking right now is a classic bleisure situation.
Classic bleisure. You're blending your business trip with your leisure trip. What does that look like, Jack?
You're taking the weekly call from the bedroom.
Hey, it's Jack.
You're wiggling the mouse pad a little bit to make sure everyone knows you're there.
I'm still here.
And then you go out and hit the beach Thursday at 4 o'clock.
I'm gone. Don't call me.
Yetis, in a real estate market where homes are unaffordable for many, Airbnb has become people's second home.
But here's the shocking thing, besties. It's not just Airbnb where we're seeing these freaky travel numbers.
Marriott Hotels also announced earnings, which were also very good.
Marriott, or is it Marriott? We still have to figure that one out, Jack. Just announced that revenues surged 28% in the past 3 months.
In this economy?
In this economy. So, Jack, what's the takeaway for all our buddies who are probably going on a record spring break this year?
Travel has become the biggest outlier in this economy.
Okay, Yetis, interesting note from the CFO of Airbnb. They said that despite the economic uncertainty, confidence in travel remains high.
Not high, record high.
Yeah, record high.
Airbnb's business has nearly doubled from before the pandemic.
Which is why we were more excited about this quote from the CEO of Airbnb.
Brian Chesky said that nowadays, the office is Zoom, the mall is Amazon, and theater is now Netflix.
We repeat, the office is now Zoom, the mall is now Amazon, the theater is now Netflix. Yetis, travel isn't facing a recession because travel is the antidote to your digital life.
The more we're at home surrounded by screens, the greater the desire we have to travel.
So whether it's a home share or a hotel, travel is the biggest economic outlier right now.
In this economy.
In this economy. For our second story, out of nowhere, Chipotle just announced they're launching an entirely new restaurant called Farmesa.
Because Chipotle's greatest competition is itself.
Which leads, Jack, to the greatest existential question of our time.
If you're going to order barbacoa, are you doing a burrito or a bowl?
Burrito or a bowl? To wrap or to fork?
To get a mess all over yourself? Or not to get a mess all over yourself.
Now, Jack, I know nothing stresses you out more than Barney the dinosaur or being at the front of the Chipotle line having to whip up a custom bowl.
That's true. I do wish I could just point to something on a menu and they'd make it. But they make me order every single ingredient.
The meat sweats Jack gets are not the meat sweats you'd think he gets.
I order in a bowl, though, every time, Nick.
Yetis, 2020 was a big year for Chipotle because that's when they started selling more bowls than burritos.
Now, Chipotle just launched a second restaurant that's 100% focused on bowls.
It is only doing bowls. Like this restaurant is the Super Bowl.
This restaurant is called Farmesa, which is a combination of the words farm and mesa.
Spanish is a little rusty, but mesa does mean table in Spanish. So it's like a farm to table in 2 languages.
Farm table, it's California-ish.
Now, side note, Jack and I should mention while we were researching this story, this isn't Chipotle's first new different restaurant concept.
They've actually sneakily launched 3 different non-Chipotle restaurant chains before.
Get this, Yetis. 7 years ago, Chipotle tried to launch the Chipotle of pizza and the Chipotle of Asian food and the Chipotle of burgers.
Sounds like a great idea.
It does. But Jack, how'd they do?
They all failed. They each shut down less than 2 years later.
Now, Yetis, we noticed something funky going on with this new restaurant because it kind of sounds like a better version of Chipotle.
Farmesa does bougie bowls better than Chipotle does bougie bowls.
Ipso facto, Chipotle's new Chipotle seems better than Chipotle.
First of all, it's entirely focused on Chipotle's number one selling product, bowls.
It's just bowls. They're like no right angles in the whole joint. If you want tinfoil, that's not going to happen here. They're not wrapping stuff for you.
Second, the menu is more premium than Chipotle's menu.
Don't bring a spork to this one. You're going to be enjoying Ora King salmon, which is like the Wagyu beef of salmon, and sprouted cauliflower. Not too shabby.
A lot of high-end ingredients like fingerling potatoes, okra.
The kind of veggies that sound like 19th century literary characters.
And third, there's more variety on the menu. Chipotle is just Mexican food. This is a wider range of food and flavors.
Which then leads to the fourth big difference. This isn't just a restaurant. It's actually a ghost kitchen.
You can't go there and sit down. It's delivery and takeout only from the delivery apps. So Chipotle can test food quickly, nimbly, without spending on a whole new location.
Now, fun fact, Jack and I should also mention, the first location's in Santa Monica, California, and there's a reason why.
Because they ordered delivery 9 times the national average. Santa Monica hates traffic.
Chicago does logistics, Santa Monica
avoids traffic, yeah.
So Yetis, Jack and I are looking at this whole new Chipotle restaurant concept, and that led to the strangest observation.
Farmesa doesn't complement Chipotle's business. It competes directly with it, doesn't it?
Jack, exactly. We're talking fresh power bowls with organic ingredients. I'm assuming the guac isn't just extra, it's extra extra.
It sounds like Farmesa is coming after the Chipotle lunch crowd.
Right, even though it's owned by Chipotle. So Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies over at Chipotle?
Chipotle just wrapped up a case study in self-disruption.
Perfect timing. Yetis, last month, Jack and I told you about the Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings, who pioneered the innovator's dilemma.
We call the innovator's dilemma self-disruption because Reed upended his Netflix DVD business before someone else could.
Well, the way Jack and I see it, this whole Chipotle new restaurant, it's a real-life case study in self-disruption.
Think about it. A ghost kitchen that serves premium, not just Mexican bowls. That is probably the biggest threat to Chipotle's business all over the country.
What we're saying is that instead of waiting for someone else to build a threat to Chipotle, Chipotle built the threat itself.
If anybody's going to take Chipotle's business, Nick, it's going to be Chipotle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yetis, Chipotle's stock is near a record high. They could have just kept doing what they're doing.
Instead, Chipotle just whipped up a threat to its very own business, a competing bougie bowl brand.
Chipotle is self-disrupting. Now, a word about our sponsor, Robinhood.
A lot of Yetis don't realize how much prep work goes into this pod.
We spend hours every morning jumping in T-Boy style to earnings reports, CEO tweets, breaking news headlines.
Yeah, Jack and I are toggling tabs like you toggled IM convos in 2004.
Having 8 tabs open can be stressful. You don't need that, especially when investing.
Robinhood offers it all in one app.
Whether you want to trade options, ETFs, or stocks through Robinhood Financial,
or you want to buy some Bitcoin on Robinhood Crypto,
you can do it all on the Robinhood app.
If you're not investing in Robinhood yet, to get started, go to Robinhood.com/Tboy and choose your free stock.
That's Robinhood.com/TBOY. Limitations apply.
Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. All investments involve risk.
By the way, this podcast is not owned or part of Robinhood, and we are not employees of Robinhood.
For our third and final story, the United States just seduced 2 car companies to leave Europe and come to America.
But it's not cool to steal business from buddies.
Yeti's funny surprise Jack and I noticed one day earlier this week.
On one day, 2 different factories announced plans to ditch Europe and move to the United States instead.
Yeah, Ford, out of nowhere, just said it's shutting down its factory in Germany, which is going to affect 3,800 jobs.
And is this a coincidence, Nick? On the same day, they announced new jobs at a new factory in Michigan.
Okay, interesting coincidence. But wait, Jack, I got one more coincidence for you. Northvolt, a company that makes batteries for Volvos, just said they may not open their new factory in Germany either.
Why? They suddenly want to build a factory in the United States instead.
So, Jack, we're talking 2 new factories about to be made in the USA. That sounds like a good thing for America.
It does sound really good.
It does sound really good. It does sound good.
But it's not exactly.
It's not, because Yetis, this is what fascinated us with the story. Ford and Northvolt just moved 2 big factories to the United States. Because it's the only way they can sell electric vehicles to the United States.
Yetis, when the United States passed the Inflation Reduction Act, a key detail was financial incentives to get Americans to buy electric cars.
Exactly. Remember that detail. We get $7,500 off an electric car if that electric car and its battery are made in the United States, Mexico, or Canada.
So if an electric car is made in Germany, it's going to cost $7,500 more than the electric car made in Georgia.
Ipso facto, the only way car companies can competitively sell their electric vehicles in the United States is if they're made in the United States.
So factories are coming to the United States. But here's the problem.
There is one problem we should point out with this situation.
Now, our European allies aren't happy that America's taking their jobs. We're literally taking their factories.
The French are feeling salty. The Germans are getting brawdy. The Portuguese are pissed. And the Portuguese don't even make cars. So, Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies over in the electric car industry?
To avoid a trade war with our allies, we're creating a badass rocks club.
Yet, is all this tension between the United States and Europe for stealing their electric car business? It could result in a trade war.
But diplomats don't want a trade war, so they're proposing a solution that they call the Critical Minerals Club.
It doesn't really roll off the tongue. It's a group of allied countries, mainly the US, EU, and Japan, that would have free trade for electric batteries.
Instead of the Critical Minerals Club, we're calling it the Badass Rocks Club.
We're going to call it the Badass Rock Club instead, because with the Badass Rock Club, we would be treating equally any batteries and materials from other club members.
Yetis, to avoid a trade war with our friends, we are working on a Badass Rocks Club.
And we hope the Badass Rocks Club happens, because stealing business from buddies just isn't cool. Jack, can you whip up the takeaways for us for the new Friday?
Airbnb is stronger than ever because travel is the antidote to digital life.
Travel, it's become the biggest outlier in this economy.
For our second story, Chipotle is testing out a separate brand called Farmesa that does just bougie bowls.
It's the art of self-disruption. And if anyone's going to take Chipotle's business, it's Chipotle.
And our third and final story, Europe is not happy that two factories are chasing EV incentives by moving to America.
So to avoid a trade war with our allies, we really need a Badass Rocks Club. Now, time for the best fact yet. This one's sent in by Yeti Amanda. We'll let her take it from here.
Push and play.
Here we go.
Besties, Yetis, Nick and Jack. This is Amanda coming from right outside of Boston with the best fact yet. When you were packing away leftovers from the Super Bowl, did you pause to think how Tupperware came to be? That's right. Earl Tupper in the 1950s came out and took households by frenzy when the product launched, making party plans all the rave in neighborhoods. A decade later, he sold his estate to Bryant University, moving their campus from Providence to Smithfield, where it is home today. Ipso facto, it's the reason why our mascot, the Bulldogs, is named Tupper. So the next time you're packing away leftovers, be sure to thank Earl and think of the dogs.
Speaking of mascots, I feel like Amanda deserves to be our mascot.
Best voice in the entire podcast game goes to Amanda.
You know, they could have called it Supperware because you put your leftover supper.
You know, Barney was a mascot, Jack, too.
We're editing that out of the pod.
Amanda, thanks for whipping it up T-Boy style. Yetis, you look fantastic for the new Friday. And if you haven't yet, drop down and give us a review. We love reading these things. 5 stars and whatever you want to say. We want to see it.
We love the 5-star reviews the most.
We do.
We'll take them every day.
If you're a dink or a dinkwad, let us know.
Nick and I will see you tomorrow.
Can't wait. And before we go, happy birthday to Yeti Felipe Fernandez in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, who's been listening to T-Boy since 2020.
And happy birthday to Sam Houseworth, turning 28 in Ithaca, New York.
And get some Cold Stone Creamery. And Vicky Ramirez, happy birthday in Colleyville, Texas.
Happy birthday to Mr. Joshua Adams, turning 42, teaching math like a champ down in Houston.
And a happy birthday to Shun Wee, who's from Japan, but now in Billingsworth, Montana, turning 42.
Happy birthday to Alex Crow in Eureka, California.
And a happy birthday to the Gabagool God from New York's Velour Medical, Steve Leone.
Congratulations to Damon Davila from Hawaii, whose suit from college still fits like a glove. And a big shout out to Bria Lee Palin and the whole Bumble team.
BFF. It really stands for Bumble for Friends.
This is Jack. I own stock of Amazon, Netflix, and Bumble. And Nick and I both own stock of Airbnb, Chipotle, and Robinhood. Now, a word about our sponsor, Robinhood.
A lot of you listen to our show while you're driving.
2 hands on the wheel. Keep it 10 and 2.
You might be cruising, Chris. No rush. Stay in the right lane.
Or you might be Darlene from Duncan, dotting from lane to lane.
And there are different drivers on the road. There are different investors too.
Maybe you're cruising down the long-term lane with stock investing, or maybe you're a more advanced full-speed trader.
Well, the Robinhood app helps put you in the driver's seat wherever you're at in your investing journey.
If you're not investing on Robinhood yet, to get started, go to Robinhood.com/Tboy and choose your free stock.
That's Robinhood.com/TBOY. Limitations apply.
Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, all investments involve risk.
By the way, this podcast is not owned by or part of Robinhood, and we are not employees of Robinhood. Chipotle's eating its own lunch. No.
No, it's not.
Chipotle's. I don't have one.
I think we're good, dude. We got it.
Okay, great.
We got it.
You're like, and that's a wrap.